let's join the worship center at Life Church, where the service is already in progress.
Not love because of how it feels. So agape love is no matter if it requires sacrifice of me and for me to put my own will, how I'm feeling, how I'm thinking aside, I still love. We see this picture clearly, and most of us can relate to it in marriage. It doesn't matter how much she nags and annoys and gets on your nerves and how much she asks you to do something and just is going on and on and on, and how much she's talking and won't be quiet. You still love because you took a vow that I will love you no matter what. I will agape you no matter what. I may want to reach out and just touch you right now, but I'm not going to. Because I love you. Agape doesn't change based on feeling. You know, people say, well, we just fell out of love. Love is a choice. Love is not warm fuzzies and ooey gooeys and sappiness all the time. Now, yes, that's nice, and that goes along with it. But even if I don't feel a warm fuzzy, I still love. Even if I don't feel all mushy and gushy and like my heart's just gonna melt, I still love. Even if the dishwasher wasn't emptied and I'm getting ready to put in a load of dishes, I still love. Even if that person cut me off in traffic, I don't lose my joy, I don't lose my love. Even if that person said all manner of evil against me, I still choose to love them. Because love is an action. Warm fuzzies are nice, but feelings are fickle. Some days you feel all good, and some days you don't. And so we can't go by how we feel. We have to go by faith. We have to go by the Word of God. Agape is laid out so beautifully in John 3:16. For God so greatly loved and dearly prized the world, that He even gave up His only begotten and unique Son, that whosoever believes in and trusts on and clings to and relies on Him shall not perish or come to destruction, but shall have eternal everlasting life. This is agape love. God so loved you in all your mess, in all my mess, in all of our sin, knowing that still some of us would choose to walk away from Him. His love went beyond that mushy feeling to action, and He loved the world so much that He sacrificed His very one and only Son. Those of you who are parents, think about that. If you have your son, your firstborn son, your only child, would you be willing to give it up for the heathens of the world? Would you be willing for your one and only child to be tortured and killed in a most gruesome way, knowing that it would have the potential to save the entire world, but some would still choose not to follow? This is agape love. Sacrifice, not based on mushy feelings, but sacrifice based on a commitment that no matter what, we are in this together. No matter how bad it gets, we are in this together. I love you. I am not going anywhere. This kind of love is lost in our world today. Many times our love depends on what somebody can do for us. how they make us feel. And we base our love on the actions of others rather than our commitment to them. God did not want to send His Son to be killed for us. But He loves us to the extent. He's committed to us to the extent that He would sacrifice for our benefit. Think about this. When is the last time that you and I sacrificed for the benefit of God or the benefit of others? When's the last time that we had true agape towards somebody else? We're all guilty of basing our love on how somebody else makes us feel or what somebody else does for us. But let us grow to the point that we reach the fact that love is a commitment. Love is not a feeling that's warm and fuzzy all the time. Love is an active commitment. Think about Jesus. He didn't want to die. Who wants to be tortured? That's not natural. Who wants to have their back beaten until it looks like hamburger meat? That's not natural. But He agaped us so much that He looked beyond His own wants and desires and fulfilled the command of God and sacrificed for our benefit. For those of you who have kids, you don't want to stay up all night with a crying baby. Who wants to be sleep deprived? Nobody. But you love your child so much that you'll do what it takes to meet your child's needs. You will sacrifice for the good of the child. We need this kind of love flowing in our life. We need this kind of love pouring out from us. Love that's not based on feeling, but love that's based on our commitment to God and our commitment to others. We do for others. We serve others. We obey no matter what we feel. And when we go to God, and if we truly have agape love for God, this is where putting our own will gets into the picture, getting our will out of the way and taking on His. No, I really don't want to be nice to that person. I just have lots of mean stuff to say about them. But Jesus said, love your enemies. So am I going to do what I want to do? Or am I going to show agape love to God and obey His commands and show agape love to others and be peaceable with all men and have love for them? What did that verse of scripture that we read earlier? It was in Luke chapter 6, verse 46. Jesus said, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and don't do what I tell you to do? If we are not obeying the commands of God, we do not love God. Because when you love someone, you do what is pleasing to them. Think about it. Most of us in this room, I'd say 80% at least, have had a boyfriend or a girlfriend in our life before. Or a crush at the very least. What do? You study up on them. You find what they like. If they like pink flowers, you get them some pink flowers. If they like mushy poems, roses are red, violets are blue. All I gotta say is I love you. I don't know. I don't write poetry. You find out what somebody likes and then you do it. If you know that they like coffee, you get them their favorite cup of coffee. That's how you begin to win them over and begin to pursue them and go after them. It's the same way with God. If we truly love God, we will go after Him. We will pursue Him. We will find out what He likes and what His Word says, and we will do it. That's how we truly love God. If we obey His commands, He says it over and over in His Word, that if we love Him, we will obey Him. If we love Him, we will do what He says. If we love Him, we will have regard for His Word. Why? Think about it in your own relationships with people. If you have a friend that always is saying, oh, I'm going to come over, and then they never show up. Oh, I'm going to do this, and then they never do it. Oh, I'll take care of that, and then they never follow through on their word. Before long, you're not going to be friends. Why? Because you feel like that they have no regard for you. That it doesn't matter what you say. They're just going to go and do whatever makes them feel good. Well, it's the same way in our relationship with God. We cannot call ourselves a friend of God. We cannot call ourselves a Christ follower if we aren't following. The only way you can take up your cross and follow Him is if you follow. The only way I can follow God and be in a relationship with Him is if I follow. We must have agape not only towards other people, but also towards God. That no matter what He asks us to do, we agape God so much. We have love that goes to the point of sacrifice so much for God that we will put our emotions, our feelings, our will, our way, what we think is right on the back burner and say, this is not about me. This is about Him. 1 John 4, 7 through 12. Beloved, let us love one another. And this is agape. When we read love in this passage, if you look it up in the Greek, we're talking about agape. For love, committed love, not mushy-gushy feeling love, not warm fuzzies. For agape love springs from God. And he who loves his fellow man is born of God, and is coming progressively to know and understand God, to get a clearer knowledge of Him. He who does not agape has not become acquainted with God, does not and never did know Him. For God is agape. In this, the agape of God was made manifest and displayed where we are concerned, and that God sent His Son, His only begotten unique Son, into the world so we might live through Him. In this is agape. Not that we loved God, but that He agaped us and sent His Son to be the propitiation, the sacrifice for our sin. Beloved, if God agaped us so very much, we ought also to agape one another. No man has at any time yet seen God, but if we agape one another, God abides and lives and remains in us, and His agape is brought to completion, to its full maturity, runs its full course, and is perfected in us. The only way for God to abide in us and through us is if we agape one another. Well, you mean I have to love everybody? If I'm going to be a Christian and I'm going to be a follower of Christ? Yes. Why? Because Jesus Himself said that if you have hatred in your heart for your brother and you don't forgive others, then God won't forgive us. And that's pretty strong. But it's the Word. That's strong. But it's the Word. So we've got to have the fruit of love in our life. Love that goes beyond the fuzzies. Committed love. Sacrificial love. These verses show that agape love is the very nature of God. Matthew 5:44. But I tell you, agape your enemies. Love to the point of sacrifice for your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Agape goes beyond good feelings. Agape is an exercise of the will. We are going to have to choose to love. Choose to have committed love. Because you're not always going to feel like it. But agape is related to obedience and commitment, not feeling and emotion. We agape one another. John 14:21. The person who has my commands and keeps them is the one who really agapes me. So if we really love God, we will look for His commands and keep them. And whoever really agapes me will be loved by my Father. And I too will agape him and will show myself to him. I will let myself be clearly seen by him and make myself real to him. So if we want God to make himself real to us, then we must have agape, committed, sacrificial love toward him. Then no matter what we feel like, we still do his commands. No matter how uncomfortable it makes us, we still do what the Bible tells us to do because it's his word, his commands. And I'd rather obey God than man. People think that they love God because they have affection toward him. But God says the litmus test for love for me is obedience to my word. That's the litmus test. That's how you know. John 14:24. Anyone who does not really agape me does not observe and obey my teaching. And the teaching which you hear and heed is not mine, but it comes from the Father who sent me. So Jesus himself said, if you don't observe my teaching, you do not have love for me. You might have affection. You might have a few warm fuzzies. But true love is not there. The third type of love this morning is phileo. It's to be a friend, to be fond of an individual or an object, to have affection for, have a personal attachment or sentiment or feeling to. So people use phileo to describe love for friends, or fondness or attachment to someone. Oh, I just love her. She's just great. That's phileo. People also use this for things like objects. Oh, I just love coffee. I just love my car. I love pickles, whatever. John 21:15. And my mama loves some pickles. We need a pickle company. She's gonna start one this summer, I think. We're gonna be canning everything. Lord help us. If it doesn't move, we're gonna can it. And if it moves, then we might kill it and can it. But back to phileo. John 21:15. We see this so clear. And this ties into what we were just talking about, about people having affection for God, but not true commitment to God. John 21:15. If you read the chapter, Jesus had already risen from the dead, and the guys, they had given up. They had gone back to fishing. They said, well, Jesus is dead. That was fun while it lasted. Time to go catch some fish. And so Jesus came up to him, and, it's the whole, have you caught any fish? You could read the whole chapter and study it this week. We don't have time to get into it. There's so much in that chapter. In verse 15 it says, and when they had eaten, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love or agape me more than these others do with reasoning and intentional spiritual devotion as one who loves the Father? So Jesus is asking, do you agape me? Are you fully committed to the point of sacrifice to me? And if you're just reading this without looking back to the translations, you're going to miss this whole thing because we just have the word love and crush and affection, you know. And they just use the word love here, but we're talking about two completely different things. Peter said to him, yes, Lord, you know I phileo you. You know I love you, that I have a deep personal affection for you as a close friend. So they're talking about two different things here. Jesus is saying, do you agape me? Are you willing to sacrifice? Or do you have a commitment to me that goes beyond the warms and the fuzzies? Because Jesus had died on the cross and they had left. Peter denied him. They went back to fishing. So he asked him one time. He said, feed my lambs. And again, a second time, Simon, son of John, do you agape me? Are you spiritually devoted to me as one that loves the Father? Peter said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you, that I have a personal affection for you as a close friend. And Jesus said to him, tend to my sheep. And then a third time. But this time Jesus asks it different. Simon, son of John, do you phileo me? And Peter was grieved and saddened and hurt that he should ask him a third time, do you love me? And he said, Lord, you know everything. You know I love you. You know I have affection for you. And Jesus said, feed my sheep. So why did Jesus use agape and Peter use phileo? Jesus was asking Peter, do you love me with a God kind of love? A love that might require sacrifice, because Jesus knew that he was going back to the Father. And he knew that these men, his disciples, were going to be left to carry out his will and proclaim the gospel to the nations. And he was asking Peter, are you committed to this? Are you willing to sacrifice for this? Because Jesus knew how it was going to be played out. Are you willing to do things for my sake that you may not want to do? Jesus was trying to deal with Peter's heart condition and make sure that he just wasn't crushing on this and that just wasn't a good idea, but that he was committed. That he went beyond the warms and the fuzzies. Because if we just have that warm, fuzzy kind of love, we will leave when it gets tough. Warms and fuzzies only last for so long. That's why we must have agape, love that goes beyond the feeling, committed love. That even when it's hard, we still obey God. Even when it's hard, we still stick with our husband and wife. Even when it's hard, we still bless those who curse us. Even when it's hard, we still love people who despitefully use us. Even when it's hard, we are fully committed to God. And even if it doesn't look like victory, we are willing to walk until it looks like victory. Jesus was trying to deal with Peter's heart condition. And like us many times, Peter immediately diverted the conversation to somebody else. Isn't that the way it goes when you're getting on to somebody? Like you're getting on to a kid? Well, why did you do that? Well, did you see what he did? He did this, this, and this. Why aren't we talking to him? And we do the same thing, and Peter did the same thing here. Look at verse 18. Jesus said, I most solemnly tell you, when you were young, you girded yourself and walked about wherever you pleased to go. But when you grow old, you'll stretch out your hands and someone else will carry you where you do not wish to go. He was indicating what kind of death Peter would glorify God with. And then it says, after this, he said to him, follow me. Obey me. Do the work that I've commanded you to do. But Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved, who leaned back on his breast at the supper and said, Lord, who's going to betray you? And when Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, well, what about him? Aren't you going to go talk to him about feeding your sheep? Jesus said to him, if I want him to live until I come, it's not your business. You follow me. So when we're asked to love uncomfortably, when we come to God complaining about our spouse, and God gives us an act of kindness to do for our spouse, and then we come to God and we're like, well, what about him? Aren't you going to go talk to her? She did this, and this, and you want me to be the one to go make the first move to forgive him? Jesus says the same thing to us. Whatever's going with them, what concern of it is yours? You follow me. We got to do what we've been commanded to do, no matter if we're the only one doing it. Our love doesn't go off of what somebody else does, because people are going to mess up. People are going to fail you. I hope not, but at some point I may disappoint or fail you. Your kids might disappoint or fail you. Your family might disappoint or fail you. Your co-workers, your boss. But our commitment to love is not based on what other people do. Our commitment to love is based on the fact that we choose to love no matter what. We choose to love God and obey Him even when it gets hard. We choose to stay with our spouse even when it gets hard. We choose to love our family even when it gets hard. We choose to love our enemies even when it gets hard. We choose. Why? Because God commanded. Our love doesn't go off of feelings. Our love goes off of our faith in God and our commitment to Him. Let's stand. God, thank you for agape love.
Thank you for joining us for Life Church broadcast today. We want to hear from you. You can write to us at Post Office Box 1004, Monticello, Arkansas 71657, or you can call us at 870-460-0829. Also, check out our new website, www.getlife.co. That's www.getlife.co. There you can find our pastor's sermon notes and see what we're doing all around the world as well as at home. We would love to have you in service with us. Come check us out at Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. or Tuesday evening prayer at 7 p.m. and we would love to see you there. We're located at 910 Old Warren Road, right in Monticello, Arkansas. Now remember, go this week and live to make God look good. God bless you till we're with you again.